Welcome to the Holistic Kid Show. My name is Zane.
My name's Abdullah.
And my name's Imad.
We're the Holistic Kids here to educate us kids from the inside out. Unable to concentrate, tired, gut issues, anxiety, depression, pain, actually have one thing in common.
What? That these make us feel miserable and suck out of the joy of life.
That's for sure. And did you know that these symptoms may due to not having enough nutrients?
How is that possible? If we eat food all the time, doesn't the food that we're eating give us nutrients?
That's a great question. And sadly, most kids today are deficient in key nutrients we need to grow. According to the CNBC, last month, 50% of children ages 1 to 5 and 70% of ages 6 to 11 have a vitamin D deficiency, and 90% are deficient in healthy omega-3 fatty acids. And that is just the beginning.
Today we have an amazing person that are with us today, Mr. Kresser, to help us out with this very important topic. Kresser is a globally renowned expert and educator in the fields of functional medicine and ancestral health, and the New York Times bestselling author of the Paleo cure and Unconventional medicine. He also has an amazing podcast called Revolution Health Radio. He was named one of the 100 most influential people in health and fitness by Greatest.com, and has also appeared as a featured guest on Dr. Oz, The Time, The Atlantic, NPR, Fox and Friends, and other. So Chris recently launched a supplement line that we love to use. Is that?
Yes.
So we would love to know your story and how you got into all of this.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure to be on the show. And I think it's really important that you're doing this work. It's going to help a lot of kids for sure. So I got into this work because I was traveling around the world surfing when I was in my 20s after I graduated from college, and I got really sick. I was in Indonesia, and I had a tropical illness that I almost died from. And in the process of recovering from that, I had to learn a lot about food and nutrition and what works best for not just my body, but for all humans. And it was learning about nutrition and how to eat properly, largely, that helped me to recover my health. And after that, I decided to go back and study functional medicine so that I could start a practice where I could help other people to recover their health, both adults and children. So over 15 years, I worked with thousands of patients, mostly adults, but a lot of kids too, ranging from 2 years old all the way up to 18 years old. And as you all said in the introduction, good nutrition is important for everybody, but it's even more important for kids because kids are still growing and they're still developing. Their brains are still developing. Their bones are still developing. Their muscles and tissues are still developing. And as you pointed out, nutritional deficiencies are very common in kids and teenagers especially. So it's even more important for kids and teens to pay attention to nutrition. But sadly, a lot of the foods that kids are eating typically don't have much nutrition in them at all. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that in the show.
And when you're saying that, kids don't focus on nutrition a lot, I mean, that's 100% true, right? Yeah. I mean, kids don't care what they put in their mouth. Let's be completely honest here. As long as it's sweet and they think it tastes good.
As long as it tastes good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what exactly does nutrition mean, really? Is it like that, when you turn over a box or something, it has all of those like nutrition facts or something? Is that what it is, or is it more to it?
Yeah, there's a little more to it, but that's right. I mean, there are labels on processed foods, you're not going to find a label on a banana, right?
Yeah.
Typically, you're not, or a piece of broccoli. But you can think about nutrition in or the nutrients we need in broad categories. I think most people, even most kids, have heard of macronutrients. Those are protein, carbohydrates, and fat. So maybe you've heard your parents say, you have to eat more protein, or you have heard about low fat diets or low carb diets. Those are the broad classes of, just the basic nutrients in food that we need. But then there are what are known as micronutrients. These are things like vitamins and minerals. So you mentioned vitamin D in the introduction. That's one of the essential vitamins that we need. Vitamin C is one that a lot of kids have heard of too. Maybe your parents have given you vitamin C when you have a cold or a flu or something to support your immune system. Iron, magnesium, those are minerals. And then there's a whole new category of nutrients that we know about now called phytonutrients. That's just a fancy term for nutrients that come from plants that don't fall into the category of vitamins or minerals. So these turn out to be very important as well. And they're probably the category of nutrients that kids get the least of, because most kids don't eat a lot of plant foods, right? They're not eating broccoli or kale, maybe some blueberries or strawberries or something like that. But we need all of these nutrients to function well. And the problem is, if you take some of the most popular kids' foods like pizza or chicken nuggets or chicken tenders or ice cream or bread, these things are mostly flour and sugar. And flour and sugar have almost no nutrients in them at all. And so they'll fill you up. They fill you up, right? They make you feel full, but they don't actually give your body the nutrients it needs. And that's the problem. If you fill up on calories or food that doesn't have any nutrients, then you're not going to be hungry for food that does have nutrients. And that's a big issue for kids.
Yeah, and I think another big thing for us, our mom, we love green smoothies and we love making smoothies at home because we get so much out of them, right? So we'll just put all the vegetables that we can find. Even though when we drink the smoothie, it might not taste the best, right? Because it's just all different kinds of vegetables and fruits. Really, after we drink it, we feel a lot better.
Yeah, our mom sneaks in a lot of
like Brussels sprouts.
No, not Brussels sprouts.
Broccoli
dandelion
or
green.
kale, maybe dandelion.
Kale, lots of kale.
Spinach.
Spinach.
Yeah, that's a great. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's something I recommend to my patients who are kids or their parents as a great way of getting a lot of nutrition is smoothies, because you can put a banana in there or berries and then you can put coconut milk, or you could put yogurt or regular milk if the kids tolerate dairy products, and make it really creamy, and that it has a nice base, just either coconut milk or yogurt and milk and then a banana or some berries. Most kids are going to like that smoothie, right? And then you just add other things, like you said, some greens, sometimes some seeds, like nuts or seeds, into the smoothie, or nut butter, like almond butter or something like that, can add some healthy fats. You can put a little bit of avocado. That's a healthy fat that can be really good for kids, and it won't change the taste of the smoothie too much. Yeah. So that's a great way. You could even put collagen peptides, which is a form of protein, or different kinds of protein powder in the smoothie to increase protein if the kid's having trouble getting enough protein in their diet, which a lot of kids do. So there's lots of ways you can make it really, really nutritious and still taste pretty good.
We also love to add amla, turmeric, and even zucchini.
We can't even taste it, right? Yeah. But we're getting the benefits from it.
Yeah.
That's right. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because spices like turmeric are among the most nutrient rich foods we can eat, actually, just ounce for ounce. All kinds of spices. And most traditional cultures, whether we're talking about Native Americans or from Mexico or Italy or India or China, they all used a lot of spices in their cooking. And it turns out those are really healthy and full of nutrients. So any spices or things like that you can add are great. Cardamom is another interesting one, or that sometimes people will put in smoothies. Cacao, chocolate.
Yeah.
This is I
Even
have
though
some
like most
some
people,
good I have some good news here. Chocolate, just cacao powder without sugar, is very healthy, very good for
oh
you. And
wow.
if you add it to
Mhm.
smoothies, it can give it a nice taste and texture without a lot of, any extra sugar.
Yeah, dark chocolate is very packed with polyphenols.
Exactly. Yeah, and those are those phytonutrients or the plant nutrients that we talked about before. There's a lot of research that shows that chocolate, when it's dark chocolate and not full of sugar, so we're not talking
Yeah.
about like Hershey bars here,
Mhm.
it's really good for you. So that's some good news I always like to share with kids and parents for that matter.
So, what happens if like we don't get enough nutrients, right? Because, like you said, most kids are not getting enough nutrients. So, how are we gonna be able to get those nutrients back into our bodies? And what's the easiest way and most like simple way for kids that they'll actually do?
Yeah. So an easy way to think about this, it's not a perfect comparison, but is a car needs fuel, needs gasoline, and it needs oil in the engine to perform well. And if the oil gets really old, or you start to run out of oil, or the gas starts to get low, the car is going to start sputtering and it's not going to
Yeah.
perform well, or it will break down, right? And that's the same thing with nutrients in our bodies. We need these nutrients for everything that we want to do, whether you're talking about running really fast in a competition, if you're, let's say, or you play soccer and you want to be really fast on the field, or let's say you are in school and you want to be able to get good grades and think clearly, or you want, maybe you're a teenager and you don't want us to get acne and have pimples on, or really you want to be able to get stronger and get taller, like to grow up as you were
Yeah,
supposed
exactly.
to reach your full height. um, Everything that happens in the body requires nutrients. Every single thing that happens in our body and in our brain requires nutrients. So when we don't get enough of those nutrients, the body and the mind start to slowly break down, or they just don't perform as well as they could. You just won't think as clearly. You won't be as fast. You won't be as strong. You won't be as healthy. You'll get sick more often, colds and flus. You're more likely to get chronic health problems. So it's really important that we get the nutrients that we need. In terms of how to get the most nutrients, I have a very simple answer to that question. It's 3 words, and it summarizes my philosophy about what to eat pretty well. Eat real food. Eat real
Yes.
food.
Yeah.
So,
We use that a lot as
so
well.
yeah. So when I say real food, I mean food that is in its natural state, and generally means food that's not in a bag or a box or a package. The more processed a food is, the further it is from how it naturally shows up. So, like, an apple grows on a tree.
Yeah.
Broccoli comes out of the ground attached to a plant. A fish comes out of the ocean or a lake. An animal that, eggs come from a chicken. Those are all things that are very close when we eat them to their natural form. But what is a Fruit Loop? What is
Yeah, exactly.
a
What's the thing that go on?
What is that
What is that thing?
exactly? What are these foods that we see in the package? You can barely even recognize them as foods because they've been processed so much. And if you read the ingredients, they're full of words that are almost impossible to pronounce, right? They're long words, names of chemicals and things that most of us don't even know what they are. Or they're things like soybean oil or sugar or corn syrup or stuff that, to be honest, if you saw it in a bowl in your kitchen, you would not want to eat it. You would
Yeah.
not recognize it as food. But these big food companies have figured out how to combine it, how to combine all those junk ingredients in ways that really make us want to eat it, even when it's not good for us. They actually make these foods so that they're kind of addictive. I mean, have you guys ever had this experience where you eat something even though you know it's not best for you, and we want to keep eating it because it just tastes good and it's hard to stop? Well, these food companies, they do that on purpose because it's in their best interest for you to keep eating that stuff. It's not in your best interest. That's the difference.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what you're saying is that we need like nutrients to function properly because the nutrients will help with like trillions of biological processes that occur in the body like every second, right?
That's correct. Yeah. We're not aware of them, but they're happening all the time. That's the brilliant thing about our bodies is all this stuff is running in the background and we don't have to think about it. But if it's not running as well as it should, we're going to feel it and we're going to notice it. That's when we just feel tired or sluggish. We run out of energy. We're not as sharp, we don't think as clearly. Or sometimes this is what often happens with kids. It can show up in like mood changes. So if you're listening to this, you're a kid and you've ever felt just really cranky, or there's a word that we use with our daughter sometimes, hangry. Are you guys
Yeah.
familiar with this word? A
Yeah.
combination of hungry and angry. Um, but sometimes it doesn't happen from not eating, it happens from eating too much sugar or not enough protein or not enough real food and too much junk food. You just don't feel right. You don't feel like yourself, and your temper gets worse, and it just nothing feels right. So yeah, that's how it works for not just for kids, but for adults too. Um, it's really important.
Yeah, and also remember that when we don't get it, then we can really get sick. Like magnesium that is needed for 600 functions in our body. If we're not getting magnesium, like your entire body is just not feeling that as well as it could. And if we don't get it, then those functions don't work well.
Yeah,
So
there's so many. Go ahead.
why are we deficient, like medicines and glyphosate?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are a lot of reasons why we don't get enough nutrients. So one is what I said before. A lot of people, not just kids, but adults as well, are eating food that doesn't have any nutrients in it. So
Yeah,
the
exactly.
refined flour and sugar and these vegetable oils that are in so many packaged foods just don't have nutrients. But another reason is that there have been some changes to the soil that food grows in over the last 50 years that has made even the healthy foods less nutritious than they used to be. So that's one of the reasons why we have to really protect the health of our soil and make sure that we're taking care of the earth that plants grow in, because that's where
Yeah.
plants get their nutrients, is from the soil. So we really need to take care of the soil. Um, Once those nutrients get in our body, as you pointed out, they are required for all kinds of different processes in the body. So everything from building muscle tissue to like calcium, the role that it plays in our bones and our teeth. Like if we don't get enough calcium, our bones and teeth don't grow properly. You can end up with a lot of cavities, which is
Yeah.
no fun. You go to the dentist all the time and have to get your cavities filled. You have nutrient, you mentioned a lot of kids are deficient in EPA and DHA, or which are the omega-3 fatty acids that you get from fish. Those are really important for brain development. And they've actually shown that when you don't get enough of that, your IQ, which is one way of measuring intelligence, could be lower than it would be if you got enough of those fatty acids. So again, there really isn't anything that happens in the body that happens without nutrients. So it's super, super important.
Yeah, and that's why. So remember that in order to if your like body is feeling really like sick, then it's super important to look into these nutrients because it might really make a difference. So I mentioned that magnesium is needed for 600 functions of the body. How can we get magnesium if we're actually deficient in it?
Yeah,
Like,
well,
is it found in any foods there that we can eat, or is it only
absolutely.
found in
No, it's definitely in foods. Although there's less magnesium in these foods than there was 50 years ago for the reason that I mentioned before, where you have a change
the
in
soil,
soil
right?
quality. And so,
All the
for
pesticides,
example,
Roundup.
Roundup
yeah,
ready.
pesticides, herbicides. So we talked a little bit about dark chocolate before. Chocolate is actually one of the best sources of magnesium. Another good source is nuts and seeds. So like almonds or cashews are a good source of magnesium. Pumpkin seeds are a really good source. We talked a little about spices before.
Yeah,
So
turmeric, right?
turmeric, coriander, which is another spice used in both Indian cooking and Latin American cooking, they're both rich in magnesium. Green leafy vegetables like spinach are also a good source of magnesium. And then we don't eat very many of these in our culture in the US, but in Japan and other island nations, they eat sea vegetables, seaweeds. So seaweeds are actually like if anyone has
Yeah, they
gone to
love
sushi,
seaweed.
Yeah,
and then
I
you
love
have
to.
nori is what sushi is wrapped in. That's seaweed and that's rich in magnesium. Yeah, my daughter, who's 12, actually loves sushi and seaweed as well. And just even the seaweed snacks like the nori sheets, she loves those. So those are good for magnesium too.
Does growing your own food help with increasing the nutritional value?
Nutritional value. Yeah. So the most people don't know this, but as soon as you harvest a food, you take it out of the ground, or let's say you take the apple off the tree, or you take the banana off of the tree or the bush. As soon as you harvest a fruit or a vegetable, it immediately starts losing nutrients. And so if you go to the grocery store and you buy a piece of fruit or a vegetable, and that vegetable or fruit was picked 2 weeks ago, and then it spent time in a truck being transported from the farm to the warehouse, and then it was in the warehouse for a few days, and then it went from the warehouse to the grocery store, and it was there for a few days, and then you finally buy it, it will have less nutrients because it's lost nutrients all that time in the process after being picked. If you go outside in your backyard and you pick a tomato and you eat it right then, it's going to be loaded with nutrients because there's been very little time between when you picked it and when you ate it. Another good option is if you don't have space to grow food or you don't have time to do it, is farmers markets. Because when you buy food at a farmer's market, usually they've picked that food pretty recently, maybe the day before or a couple days before they come to sell it at the farmer's market. And you can usually taste the difference. So if you've ever eaten like right now where we live in Oregon, the blackberries and blueberries and strawberries are in season. And so when you go to the farmer's market and you taste a blackberry from the farmer's market, it almost tastes like candy. It is so sweet,
Yeah.
so full of flavor. And then you go to the grocery store and you taste the blackberry from the grocery store. It's still good, but it's not as flavorful and sweet. And that's in part because it has been sitting on a truck and transported for a while. So it's still great to eat whole foods from any place that you get them, but the closer you can eat a food to when it was picked, the better.
So, what is one thing that kids can do today to get as many nutrients to help their bodies and brains grow?
Well, I'm going to go back to I like to keep things simple because I think when it gets too complicated, people get
Then it's too
overwhelmed
hard
and
for kids as well.
confused.
Yeah.
It's too hard. Yeah, for kids too. So I keep coming back to eat real food. So the more real food you can eat, the better, the more nutrients you will get. It's pretty simple. Now, I want to be clear. I think there's still room for having fun and eating some fun foods occasionally. You go to a birthday party and there's cake at the birthday party, go ahead and have a piece of cake and enjoy it. But I mean that like that's not the only thing you should eat. You
Yeah,
mostly
exactly.
should be you mostly should be eating real food. And then when you have these special occasions, you can enjoy, whatever everybody else is having and know that you're getting plenty of nutrients otherwise. So, yeah, just for parents and kids, just eating real whole foods that are as close to how they are in nature as possible. That's by far the most important thing. And if you get that right, then the rest is just sort of bonus, or icing on the cake, as they say.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chris. Now let's recap your key points.
Also, remember this was so empowering. Everyone, make sure to follow Mr. Chris on social media.
Now back to the key points. Good nutrition is good for everyone, but it's super important for us kids and teens as we are growing. Everything that happens in our body needs nutrients.
Like a car, it needs fuel to work and oil, and if it doesn't get it, then it won't work. Like same with us kids. So what you are saying is that we need like nutrients to function properly because that will really really change how your mind works, how your body feels, and and you'll feel better about everything, and you'll feel a lot happier as well.
Yeah, like
Yes, absolutely.
magnesium. That is
So micronutrients or macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbs. Then micronutrients are vitamins, minerals like vitamin D and vitamin C, and minerals like magnesium, which are super important. Phytonutrients are nutrients from plants, and most kids are actually not eating enough plant foods because they're so like addicted to all of these sugary processed foods, right?
yeah.
You don't really see a kid eating a carrot anymore, unless their mom told them to. So they may fill you up, but they don't give your body the nutrients you deserve and need.
Yes, but the best way to get nutrients is to eat real
Real
food.
food.
The more real food you eat, the more nutrients you can get. Food that's in a natural state, foods that are not in a bag or a box, the more processed the food is, the further it is from its natural state. The processed foods are packed with additives and preservatives to make you keep eating the food. which is very not good because
Not
they're
good.
using you to get money. So we love to pack as much nutrients in a smoothie. Spices are the most nutrient-dense foods you can find, full of nutrients. We love dark chocolate because they're packed with polyphenols and is an easy way to get your nutrients. Grow your own food and get food from farmers markets. Get the most nutrient foods. If you can't grow food outside, we love food in we love to grow food inside like broccoli sprouts, and we love to put it in everything.
Yeah, I remember living healthy and boosting immunity always starts with diet and cannot be replaced. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chris. We know you are incredibly busy, and so we are so honored that you could join us today. This was amazing.
Amazing.
Thanks,
So
guys,
thank
for
you
doing this
guys.
work.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Zansari.
I'm Abdullah.
And I'm Iman.
Follow my family and I on social media. Holistic Mom Tia. Look out for my mom's book. She has written a lot of them. Kids need to learn from other kids. Please download our podcast on iTunes and leave a review so other kids and families can benefit. We need to work together to create a healthy future for all of us and the planet. Join us next week for another episode of the Holistic Kid Show. For kids are empowering kids. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
everyone.